Hello, I'm Binzer Flynn, and welcome to the Flinncast. Let's do two quick bits of news before we start. One is very quick one. First look at the Joker, Jared Leto from the Justice League. Did you guys see that picture?
No.
Very long hair, looks like he's in jail or something. It looks good.
I actually liked him in Blade Runner 2049.
Oh, he was great in it. But yeah, just
I
him
like
in real
that.
life he weirds me out, man.
When you said that, I thought you meant the Joker was in Blade Runner 2049.
Wait.
No. Leto.
Did I miss a chunk of the movie?
Did you see something I didn't see?
It looks like Joker in jail. He's like missing shit. So I guess.
Now, if I looked at it a few hours ago, but just for a second, Juice, does he have face tattoos in that? Because I don't think he did.
No face tattoos.
Because he has a lot in the other movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he does.
Okay.
It looks like some of them. I think he's actually like put white face makeup on to cover them.
Oh, interesting.
At least that's
I
what
just
it
wish the
looks
damn
like.
thing would come out already.
Soon though, isn't it?
March, isn't it?
It was supposed to be Christmas, but now it's March because now it's a 4-hour miniseries instead of a movie.
Were they
According
trying?
to the article that I'm reading right now.
Were they holding out, hoping it would go into theaters?
I have no idea.
A 4-hour movie? No fucking way they would put that out as unless they actually had an honest to God intermission.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because I mean, the closest it's come to would have been Return of the King, and that was like 3.5 or 3:25.
Oh, sorry, no. So, okay, originally meant to be a 4-hour miniseries, the film will now release as one long feature. There we go.
Jesus.
So it's going to be a 4-hour movie, which makes sense, right? They would never, like, no movie theater is going to air a 4-hour movie. So throwing it right to HBO Max, where people can pause and get up and go to the bathroom and get food and get on with their lives or whatever, kind of makes sense.
I'll be glad when it's over, when it's out and done with, because I'm sick of hearing about it, you know? Like, let's just fucking do it. Come on.
Yeah, let's see if this thing is
they'll be
actually
talking
better
about
or
it for
worse.
like 2 years.
Then it'll come out and the fans will still hate it and be disappointed.
Well, that's just it, right? At this point, the hype is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it'll never live up to what everyone has in their heads, right?
Can't do it.
So
we'll see. The other piece of news is MCU related, the Falcon and Winter Soldier trailer.
It looks like a buddy cop movie. It looks awesome.
Like it.
Does look like a lot of fun.
Only 6 episodes though, so that's a little sad.
Yeah.
But you know what? I kind of like this because it's like the UK television, where they'll have really great shows that run for 7. And that's it.
Yeah.
And they might come back for a Christmas special, you know. And I like these little, because to me they're kind of like little vignettes.
Yeah.
That now you can move the pieces around. Where I was going to call him Hawkman. Falcon will take off and go do something else. They'll come back together.
Yeah.
But hey, still longer than WandaVision.
Yeah, still longer than WandaVision.
I like how it shows both of them in the trailer with the shield, like throwing it, catching it. It's like neither one of them has 100% claim to it, kind of.
I don't think either one of them feel they can live up to Captain America.
Totally.
And it should be interesting because in the comics, both of them at some point become Captain America.
Falcon did the Captain America run in the comics just a couple years ago, was when I was still reading regularly, and it was actually really good. And the funny thing about it was they kept showing panels of like Twitter feeds, like social media feeds, and Sam would read about himself just getting fucking shredded on social media. So they did that with Iron Man not that long ago too, and it just made it much more relatable into the real world.
Yeah.
Like, Tony Stark sucks. Falcon's a terrible Captain America. Just, you know, internet trolls doing their thing, right?
Yeah.
That's why you never read the comments.
Never.
Yeah.
Trolls got a troll.
What else? The end of the trailer is my favorite part. Are you guys having a staring contest?
Yeah.
Just like it's so.
Well, the couples therapy in a jail cell or an interrogation looked kind of cool. I like that they brought Baron Zemo back. So clearly the first episode's going to deal with how the hell is he out of prison, because, you know, they lock him up at the end of Civil War.
In
so
Wakanda.
How the heck is he getting out?
In Wakanda, nonetheless.
Is it in Wakanda?
Black
No, I
Panther.
don't think it's in Wakanda.
Oh
I
no,
remember.
you're right. It was. It was
Martin
Germany.
Sheen's not Martin Sheen.
Yes, I know who you're talking about, and yes, you're right.
Yeah.
It was in that. It was in that facility. So yes, all right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It was the Panther that caught him, but they actually locked him up in that UN facility.
Right.
So.
That's it.
All right. My bad.
I just find it cool that they're bringing back an existing bad guy already that kind of had unfinished business. Yeah, I mean, he did what he did through subterfuge, and he was Baron Zemo. But it's kind of like, and I know this won't become a recurring thing because they've said that all these Marvel shows are one-offs. There's not going to be a season 2 of WandaVision because it's going to go into the rest of Phase 4, right?
Yeah.
So like, it's just another one of those. It's like the Spider-Man movies where the bad guys are all people Tony pissed off
Yeah.
at some point in his life. So it's like a leftover Captain America villain that they have to put away for good type thing. And whatever. It's cool that they're using a recurring character, and I think it'll be really good. Maybe an original villain might have been nice. And I think there are other villains in it, like Zemo's henchmen or whatever, because I don't know that story very well. So I'm excited.
I'm looking forward to Zemo coming back as a villain because I mean he was a great villain. He has no powers. He just fucking had a scheme and it worked, and he got the Avengers to tear themselves apart, and all he had to do was plan ahead and execute it. And I can't wait to see what they do with him.
And then the cool thing about after that is Loki starts up right as soon as we literally get WandaVision and then Falcon and Winter Soldier and then Loki. So I'm super stoked for more Hiddleston.
We're going to talk about all this Marvel stuff, said the Star Wars podcast. Although speaking of that, I've been kind of keeping tabs on the High Republic stuff they've been putting out. Some stuff I'm kind of avoiding to go in fresh, but I saw the video on the villains that they're going to be doing, the Drengir, where they're like these plant-based creatures that got woken up and now they're everywhere.
And then the Hill, or the Nihil, or whoever the hell you want to say.
Nihil, yeah. Well, I'm excited for that. So I love fresh Star Wars territory.
The first book is out, and people are saying it's pretty good.
Oh, well, I'll have to check that
out. One of my favorite Star Wars YouTubers, Thor Skywalker, says the book's quite good. So he's been my compass on a lot of Star Wars stuff lately.
Do we dare venture into book reviews? Meredith's face just lit up there.
I hate the internet, man. It's just as soon as it fucking came out, everyone's like, "Oh, Star Wars with its SJW agenda," and I'm like,
"Oh my god, still at it, eh?"
It's not out yet. Just because there happens to be a black Jedi on the cover doesn't mean this is SJW bullshit. Fuck off.
They're still mad about Rey. What do we say? Fuck them. Anyway, let's get to the main course, I guess, right away. WandaVision seasons 5 and 6. They got us into the real world. Fatapol's got notes here. Some was it 4 and 5? Sorry, episodes 4 and 5. Thank you, Christ. But a lot of our theories are now out the window. But I think more theories have just come into being. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I like the fact that they're actually doing what we're doing, except on television, with a lot of money backing them up.
That's fair. It's literally Darcy and Jimmy Woo going, "What the fuck is going on?" Nope.
They are great together too, and someone said that they need to do a Marvel style X-Files with Darcy and Jimmy Woo, and it would be fantastic. Jimmy Woo is so good.
If it is to believe, it's been supposedly it was pitched last weekend.
No, really?
Kat Dennings has confirmed that Darcy is in other Phase 4 Marvel things as well. So
that's cool. Darcy's a lot of fun.
Yeah, because what they could do is they could check out like the D-listers.
Totally.
Of the Marvel universe, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I just want to say about WandaVision, several of my theories were correct. Were they not, gentlefolk? She's rebuilding Vision, right? She stole the body. She's rebuilding. Matter can leave the hex. Thank you.
What's disturbing about Wanda retrieving the body of Vision is that in that previous episode we had that brief flash of him dead with the hole in his head. That's what he really looks like. That was the veneer stripped away.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's fucking scary, man.
What if that didn't happen? What if they're just being shown a video that makes it look like she did that? Because I don't trust that guy. That head guy of sword. No, don't trust him. Don't like him.
Yes, he's a trope.
The idea is that Wanda is the bad guy in this show, and she's the one inflicting all this pain on people. I don't buy it. She's been tricked or manipulated into this. And my current favorite theory is that Mephisto is somehow behind this. And I like that idea.
She's got the two kids, right?
That's been out there for a while. So yeah.
Because the kids they have parts of Mephisto's soul in the comics, right?
I don't know if I talked about this last time because I don't know when I came up with this theory. 'Cause it's been a long couple weeks. But I was rewatching the episodes because Phoenix had never seen them before, so we were watching them with him. And so we were watching those, and in the second episode, they kind of just like did this weird drone, like a voice recall thing for the children. And it was a big thing right before she got pregnant. That whole episode beforehand was for the children. So I was like, what if that was her trigger? What if she found out she was pregnant and she just lost her mind? Like,
well, it seems
possible.
It seems that things that she wants suddenly happen.
mm-hmm.
For the children, she gets kids.
Yeah.
Talks about her brother not coming back. Spoiler alert. And I'm sure that we'll talk about that implication down the podcast. I'm thinking yes. I think she's being manipulated. She's a little bit being manipulated, but at the same time, she's realizing what she has and doesn't want it to go away. Hence why she popped out. She popped out briefly to return the drone and told them to still stay the hell away from her, or she'll fuck them all up. Which, and again, we'll talk about this down the podcast. She probably could do.
Yeah.
My current crackpot theory is that Agnes is the bad guy, which has been thrown around for a little while now. But I think Agnes is manipulating the Wanda in such a way so that she had the kids. So I agree with whoever said that maybe Wanda was pregnant before Infinity War even started. Thus the twins and her got dusted and then came back and da-da-da-da-da. But then we see in episode 5, the kids can control their own aging, which means they have some measure of control over the world itself.
She can't
that nobody else seems to have.
Or do they just have control within the Hex?
She can't manipulate them. She tried to like make something happen with them, like to get them to go to sleep. Her powers don't work on them in there.
She told them not to. She said, "Don't age up. Don't age up. Like, I can't stop you if you try. Like, don't age up."
Plus, she was trying to get them to stop crying when they would go to sleep.
But the boys also realize that they can age themselves up because they age themselves up from like 5 years old to 10 years old. And then when Agnes brings out the dead dog that they've owned for 20 minutes or whatever, Wanda's like, "Don't you dare! Don't you fucking dare! Go from being 10 to 15 or whatever."
The facade doesn't work on them. They're aware of everything that's happening in there. They're not like, you know how Agnes is like suddenly okay with these 10-year-old kids being in the room when they were just infants about like 15 minutes ago, and she's just like, "Oh, you know, kids, blah 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 blah." But the kids are aware.
They grow up so fast.
Everything. They're aware of everything that's happening. So whatever magic Wanda's working on everybody else, whether it's her or through her from somebody else, they're immune to whatever's going on in there.
Wanda said, I think in the latest episode, that she doesn't remember starting this, or she's not responsible for starting this. And the thing that I think has slipped through the cracks from the beginning is why Sword was there in the first place was a missing person that was in witness protection. So this is the missing key to everything.
Oh, yeah, good point.
And I have to assume, because they had Jimmy saw all the IDs on the board, right? Where they had all the townspeople are like, okay, so-and-so was cast as so-and-so, and they're going through them all. I have to assume that we didn't see on that board the person that was in the witness protection program.
I don't remember seeing him.
Right? Like, we don't know who it is. I mean, he said he.
Yeah.
In the beginning, but so like they've identified the men that we met so far. So
most of the close neighbors, the supporting cast, they've pretty much identified.
Have they identified like their African descent neighbor?
Herb?
Yeah.
Yes, Herb. They have they did ID Herb.
Okay.
Yep. They did Herb, they did Phil, who's married. That's a whole thing too. Like he's married to
Mustache Man?
Dottie, and that character, that name is actually that person is the husband of oh gosh, I forget which. I think she's Squadron Supreme hero. I would have to look that up. I forget, but so that's kind of interesting in and of itself. But they named him and said who he was, and then they did the guy who in the last episode Vision brought his memory back for a second.
Carl, I think it is, wasn't it?
Yeah, they talked about him. And I think those were the only guys that they identified. Maybe a couple other ones that had been at the talent show, but I just feel like Jimmy would have been like, at least there would have been some sort of tell if he'd seen his guy on the board. So I don't know.
With Vision giving Carl a momentary freedom from what was ensnaring him, whether Vision's really him or whatever, like he is becoming self-aware, and I think Apollo was onto something last time about Wanda somehow bringing him back, and like he's being rebuilt a piece at a time, and now she's growing beyond his control as he becomes self-aware, and I'm just dying to see where they're going with it, like
it's the same thing with the kids, right?
Yeah,
well, because when the video was being played, Vision was in multiple pieces.
Yeah,
he wasn't in one piece, and then when we saw like the facade drop, he was in one piece, and there's a personality that's starting to be there. So I mean, that kind of supports that theory as well, because she didn't get him all together.
I'm thinking that's more just a flashback of her having like a PTSD moment, but that's just me.
Now, see, I agree with Raina, because at the end of Infinity War, Thanos just, like, Wanda blows him up to blow up the Mind Stone first, but then after Thanos reverts time, Thanos just kind of reaches into Vision's forehead and just plucks the stone out, right? He doesn't, like, blow Vision's body into pieces.
the sword guys might have taken him apart though to store him and study him.
I'm thinking the sword guys took, ripped him to pieces.
Either way, Vision says he has no memory of before Westview, which I found very interesting. He has no memory of the Avengers, none of that.
I'm curious too why, to go back to the guy in Witness Protection Program, because the FBI was looking for him, right? So why is Sword not in space? Like, why is Sword suddenly? Like, I mean, that could just be that they've done that for the storyline, just because they wanted to introduce somebody new. I mean, it may very well be, but because they have like the satellite-y space thing.
But the thing is, Sword stands for Sentient Weapon Observation and Response Division.
Yeah. So whoever they were hiding in Westview, he is a super of some kind, obviously. Like this isn't just some guy that squealed on the Mafia and they hid. It's not like.
So like, I'm assuming Jimmy probably doesn't know who was there. Sword cared more because they wanted to see maybe if it was they were worried that the guy that they were worried about disappeared. That makes sense.
So what if it's like her brother is the one that is the one in Witness Protection? Because Vinzer just said it could be a super of some kind, and it probably is. What if it's him? Like, what if this is some weird thing that's happening now, and he's the one that's in there, because he's the only guy besides like maybe the doctor and the boss in episode 1 who hasn't been identified so far.
We'll get to the $74 billion cameo in a second, but one thing I wanted to say before we do that is they referenced, we've been seeing the hexagon shape since the start, and Darcy kind of coined the term hex power. The hex power is what they've called Scarlet Witch's powers in the comics forever. And here's the thing, they made a point of saying, and I haven't checked this for sure, but looking back on it, Wanda doesn't have a code name. She is not the Scarlet Witch yet, and they even made a point to say no silly superhero name. And I don't think she's going to be the Scarlet Witch until she puts on that Halloween costume in the next episode, and she'll be like, "Who are you?" "Oh, I'm the Scarlet Witch," and that's when her code name will finally be official in the MCU. But yeah, I'm glad they finally said, okay, she's got hex powers, because that's a comic thing. I like it.
Because up to this point, they only they said the only reference to her powers and stuff was he's fast and she's weak.
Exactly.
All right, let me tell you my stuff I wrote down before we get into the heavy hitters.
Go for it.
Okay, number 1. Did you notice the kids had all the ages cake? candles.
Yes.
They had 5, 4, 3,
That was
2,
cool.
1. So it was all 5 birthdays at once, blowing it out. The newspaper that Vision was holding, on the back was an ad for Westview VHS and beta players, and on the screen was the beekeeper. Okay.
Oh,
The headline in the paper was about local recipeers do well, but above that was more dramatic details about the lights in the sky.
Oh.
Okay. Let's see. Nominally's hex shaped. I do that. Matter changed. Kevlar pants. Yeah, I called it. And finally, the commercial. The commercial this week was for
That was
paper
the one
towel.
It was so on the nose. This one was very obvious as to what it was about.
Yeah, so it's all about when Wanda kills all those people.
Lagos brand, yeah.
Yeah, and what did you notice, or did you hear? Like the juice was running, and then when they cut to the Legos label, you still keep hearing the drip, 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 drip all through the odage of the commercial. I thought that was a brilliant one.
So the two actors in the commercials are always the same people.
Yeah.
What if those are their parents?
Well, that's the thing, is they referenced in the latest episodes Oleg and Irina Maximoff, and I'm telling you right now, I don't believe for a second that's their birth parents. That's who took them in as babies. I'm still firmly in the camp that Eric Lenscher is her father. Totally.
I said that episode the second time we talked about it. I talked all about how that was their parents. Yep. Do you not listen to me?
Oh. What? About what? About Magneto being the parents?
I do. But that was like a month ago.
Shut up, you.
Oh, the Oleg and Irina?
Yes, that's what he's talking.
Where are we? What's going on?
It hurts so much.
I do remember it, in all fairness. I do remember you saying that. Yeah, I do. I edit this shit. I remember it.
Oh, man.
All right, let's get to the cameo. It's a big one. There's major implications. Like, we don't know if this is a meta cameo tip of the hat to the fans, or is this the first of many we're going to see from the other universe? What the hell is going to happen?
The first thing I said was, Fassbender's back on the board.
She did. She did.
I mean, we could get First Class now. All the First Class X-Men continuity. The cameo was cool, but I thought the fact that Darcy says she recast Pietro was really interesting, because that means that she realizes what has happened.
Except Wanda didn't recast him. She was as shocked as we were. So whoever's pulling the strings.
I didn't call it. My guess was actually Magneto. Like that seemed like a solid call, because he'd be like, all right, I'm coming and I'm sorting this stuff out. Like he just, he kind of is like, this is big enough, and kind of goes in and tries to maybe help her out or whatever, but I don't know.
I thought it was going to be her timeline, Quicksilver. I thought it was going to be him.
See, it's funny, because I thought if it was going to be him, that it was going to be the X-Men version, because that was their chance to tie it together, but I didn't. He was like third or fourth on my list of who I thought it was going to be, so yeah. I was hoping for Magneto.
Yeah,
that's no Mark Hamill level cameo.
In all fairness, Olsen saying the Luke Skywalker lover cameo, it could have been a red herring. There still could be one coming. We don't know that, right?
Yeah.
We've let our guard down now, right? Like, Quicksilver. Then by the end of the series, Magneto shows up and our doors are blown off.
So as someone pointed out on the net, and I figured out, in the House of M storyline, Wanda basically rewrites a universe.
Yep.
So it would make sense that if they want to start merging multiverses, you might as well have the person that's done it start to do it, subconsciously or consciously. I think it is who it is, and it's going to be the first of many. And quite frankly, I predict that the next Doctor Strange movie is where they're basically just going to mash the two together, and so they can start getting the X-Men.
It's already called Multiverse of Madness.
Well, I mean,
Exactly.
they're having a live action Spider-Verse, and they're getting like I think they've at least got 2 of the 3 Spider-Mans to sign on, if not the
I
third
think
one.
so.
Tobey Maguire signed on, but I didn't know if what's his face.
Andrew
Garfield?
Garfield.
Garfield.
I think he did.
As far as I'm aware.
Okay.
My guess is whoever's controlling Wanda is using her for her powers in order to merge the universes for their own ends, which is why I think it could be Mephisto or maybe even Kang, because he's going to come in the Ant-Man movie, and Kang's a multi-dimensional
That's
badass
true.
Avenger villain, right? So, like, I think Wanda's a pawn in this whole thing, and she's just being manipulated by getting her happy ending, and she's completely twisted around.
What if it's the guy that's at Sword? Like, what if he's being also either A, that's his, like, alter ego, or whoever this guy is, or he's a puppet for this guy by, like, making Wanda seem like the victim, because she would have no reason to, I mean, besides being just mad, to go in and, like, grieving, to go in and get Vision to, like, start this thing. But, like, what if that, like, was there just to kind of make her, look like the bad guy, but it's actually like Sword is being manipulated from the top.
Maybe after this bad guy achieves his dimensional merge or whatever he's after, then Wanda's going to have to be gotten rid of, because if she turns on him, that's a loose end, right? So use Sword and the world to see Wanda as a villain and then take her out.
But doesn't when you keep going from the House of M, she then wipes out all but 196 mutants or something?
She says no more mutants, and it happens.
Yeah. So there's also that, right?
So
Because the first part is like she makes Happy Mutant Land for everybody. They all get their happily ever after stories, and then she gets rid of the most of them. Her own version of the snap, sort of.
Going back to whoever just talked about Wanda being a fugitive, she's technically a fugitive right now. Cap broke her out of the raft, and then they were on the run for the time in between Civil War and Infinity War. So, like, she's legally a fugitive right now. So, like...
So then why didn't they arrest her in the 5 interv...
She was snapped.
She was snapped. Okay, so why didn't they... So, okay, never mind. Then
she's been busy since since the battle at Wakanda. She was either gone or she's been doing this shit. So yeah, there wasn't a moment to catch her.
That just made me think where the timeline on this is. So this is basically about what, 3 weeks after the blip was reversed.
Yeah, so one thing that's literally where I was going. So the good thing about episode 3 was that it set the timeline for when this is happening, because it straight up says, we see Monica come back from the blip, and the hubbub about that was also cool to see from an immediate standpoint, because Spider-Man just kind of brushed it aside.
Yeah.
There was like you've been off for 3 weeks and now you're coming back to work, and then we're sending you out to WandaVision, etc. So it's good to know that this is like literally 3 weeks after Endgame finishes up.
Yeah, as an aesthetic choice, I like the way they blipped everyone back. It was rather than what they did in Homecoming, where it was just like flash a light and you're back. In this case, it's just like they dusted, and they undusted. I like that.
Tell me that you didn't like the marching band in the middle of the thing.
Oh, don't get me wrong.
Like, that was good.
Oh, don't get me wrong. That actually had a good comedic effect. But as far as undusting people, I actually liked. I like this effect much better.
What if you were in a plane?
Oh, I got it. So Kevin Feige has come out and said that the Hulk is a smart person, and he would have wished for everybody to be returned safely.
That was my theory, is that I hope they appear on the plane and not where the plane was. So maybe the plane they're on gets crowded if it's on the land or in the air. But I assume Hulk would have thought of that.
There's a lot of Wile E. Coyote happening.
No phasing into each other and killing each other horribly a transporter accident.
Well, I mean, presumably some pilots were actually blipped.
Yeah.
Before.
Well,
so.
Yes. Well, I mean, when they blipped out, Nick and his assistant, during that last scene.
Maria.
If
That's
you
right, too.
pan above, there was either a plane or a
Plane going down.
helicopter. I
Yeah.
can't remember either one.
It was a
Went
plane.
down and a plane crashed into a building. So yes, that happened.
That's right.
That makes you wonder if people died indirectly because of the blip. Did they fall between the cracks, or did the Hulk manage to bring them back too? Because they got fucked. You know, if your pilot just got dusted.
Who knows?
Yeah.
The
Important
logistical
questions.
nightmare of half the population suddenly disappearing, and then after 5 years finally restabilizing, and then suddenly they blip right back in, and you're like, fuck.
I live here now. Get out.
Yeah.
So either way, whatever's going on with this Quicksilver being brought in, whether he stays for an episode or this is going to be shades of things to come, whatever way you look at it, the MCU multiverse is upon us one way or the other, and
Yes.
it's all opening
And
up
I
now.
find it interesting. This is the second straight Marvel thing where they talk about multiverses, because they bring it up in Spider-Man, right? Not that Jake Gyllenhaal's character is actually from another dimension or another multiverse, but they at least talk about it there in the cave for a bit. So I'm hoping that they do it in such a way that it keeps audiences, because I find sometimes with multiverses, audiences start to go, but who's from where and where's from who, and it's hard
Yeah.
to keep track of. So I hope that they do a good job of it.
Well, this is why I'm thinking with Wanda being in the picture, they're just going to merge everything into one, and then you don't have to worry about it.
I think that's where they're heading too, because we've talked about this before. They got to bring X-Men and Fantastic Four into it, and I don't believe for a second all the mutants are suddenly going to be from Westview, New Jersey. Like they have, Professor X and Magneto have to have been in a world, a reality for a while, right? Like they can't just cold start it. So it's going to merge somehow, and I think that's their long-term plan.
I don't think she'll merge all the multiverses together, just because if Doctor Strange is going to be titled The Multiverse of Madness, that I think the multiverse will obviously still have to exist for that movie to happen.
That movie could be dealing with the fallout from this series, though,
that's
right?
Fair.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Making sense of it. Doctor Strange has got to take everything that's going on and straighten it out.
Because it's rumored to be a superhero horror movie, which will be an interesting combination.
Ooh, I like me some horror.
You have my attention.
Not a huge fan of horror, but I'll handle superhero horror like this, because, I mean, yes, maybe it's going to be a horror flick, but they still got to make it R enough that a superhero and add a hard PG enough,
PG-13 enough. Yeah.
that they'll be able to bring the kids to the theater as well as the parents.
Whatever they do to make all the X-Men, Fantastic Four, whatever things go together, I think even the diehards will win over quickly once Deadpool's thrown into the middle of everything, right? Like
for sure. Yeah.
And he'll break the fourth wall about it.
Of course he will.
Two things.
He does.
So first thing was that so Marvel's now done like heist superhero movies. They've done time travel superhero movies. Winter Soldier and Falcon looks like a buddy cop superhero movie. So they've done lots of genre films within the superhero genre. So I think they'll pull off a horror superhero movie really well. Second thing was somebody online. Remember Kat Dennings says that she calls a structural engineer? What if that's Reed Richards?
Imagine.
Reed Richards would know lots about cosmic background radiation.
Yeah, but again, you know what? Reed Richards is too big a Marvel character in the universe to not to have heard of him so far, even in just a throwaway line by Tony Stark or something. Yeah, pretty smart, but this Richards guy's even smarter. Like they could have done that, and they haven't, which makes me believe the Fantastic Four just aren't here yet. Here's a theory I came with just on the spot, is that the Fantastic Four will get merged in first, and with the absence of Avengers, they'll be hailed as heroes and good guys, and people will love them, which is, well, you know, first family Marvel, everyone loves the Fantastic Four, but then somehow the X-Men will come in after that, and it'll be fighting Magneto, and people get killed, and then everyone's going to hate the mutants.
I think that when they come in, they're going to come in, just from the history, they're going to come in with their powers already established, because they know that, like, the writers know that the origin story has been done to death, and so when they finally brought in Spider-Man, they treated him the same way, as in, he already had his powers, oh, look, he got a souped-up suit, but it was already established, like, we didn't see him get bit again, so I think that when they do finally have the Fantastic Four, they're not going to be doing anything with origin stories. because we've seen it and they know it doesn't work because they flopped every single time. So if they already have them established and then just shoot them into an adventure, I think it'll be more well received.
And it worked. It worked with Spider-Man perfectly. It would work for Fantastic Four. I think you're right.
Yeah.
I would argue
And
that
just-
Ant-Man and
But they haven't
Iron...
been done in other universes yet.
We haven't seen the Ant-Man origin story 10 times already, right?
Like they didn't do Hulk either. They didn't do an origin story. I mean, Hulk never had a movie technically, but like he didn't really have.
He did.
Just
he didn't have an origin story in this Marvel universe though. Edward Norton is the established one, and he already had his powers. He didn't really have an origin story.
Sort of. Yep. They did it right at the very beginning of the movie.
That's not an origin story.
They glossed over it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Close
but
enough.
They didn't blow the first third on the movie of Peter Parker's a geek, gets bit by a radioactive spider, builds a shitty costume, Uncle Ben dies, says the thing that everybody hates, and then we get on with the movie for the second 2/3.
It's like the Batman origin. We don't fucking need it.
Within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
We want to go right to Batman 2 or Spider-Man 2 without doing the origin.
Well, I mean, Batman vs. Superman did the same thing, right? They gloss right over the Batman origin story. They barely even mention it before they get right into it because everybody fucking knows it already.
We know. Crime Alley, Pearls.
So my new pie in the sky theory for Multiverse of Madness, kind of building up what Raina was talking about a couple seconds ago. What if they get like Terrence Howard to come back as Rhodey?
Oh my God.
And they get Chris Evans to come back as Johnny Storm.
That I would love.
Yeah.
And it would just be a shit show of hilarity.
I'm on for. I'd be on
I don't
board.
think Terrence Howard would ever do it because he left on bad terms, unless Marvel like threw a bunch of Disney money at him, which is entirely possible.
No, I think Howard burned his bridges when he tried to renegotiate his salary for Iron Man 2. So
that article came up again the other day. How Marvel called Don Cheadle and said, "Do you want to be War Machine?" He said, "Take an hour." And he says, "Well, I'm at my kid's birthday party. Take 2 hours for a 12-year commitment."
But like, tell me that Chris Evans wouldn't come back purely for the laugh. As
know what would be really funny too is I feel like the press would hype the shit of it. Chris Evans returns to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, oh boy, Captain America again, and it's like, hello, flame on. Storm,
I would love it. I would love it so much.
Oh no.
No, that would be hilarious.
One last little tidbit, or maybe not the last, but one anyway, is two things about Monica Rambeau in the episodes is one, she did not want to talk about Captain Marvel because she hasn't seen her in a long time, probably feels pretty abandoned. The other was, it's just a small thing, but I feel like it's not going to be a small thing, is her test results from the doctor came back inconclusive, and I feel like that's put out there for a reason. Yeah,
so going back to Merida's point a couple weeks ago that she is supposed to have powers, I just can't remember her superhero name. Maybe the Hex gives her the abilities that she's supposed to have as per comics.
She's Spectrum at one point, but I don't... Photon? But they
Photon
use
was
for her mom.
Photon's her mom, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it's her, actually, but they use it for her mom in that, I think.
If you actually look at her chart, like when they're like, there's nothing on this thing, her X-ray results look really weird. Not even just her blood test, but there's nothing on those X-rays. She doesn't show up. So that leads to the name, at least. I'm not sure what her powers are. I'm not familiar with that character in the comic books, but...
Well, according to this, she can transform herself into any form of energy with the electromagnetic spectrum. So a CAT scan, trying to go look at her?
Could be residual Hex radiation. They might not do the whole power route for her. I don't know. Someone was a theory that came up was, and I don't buy into it, is that she's been activated as a mutant. No, and I'm not buying it.
They do, I think, potential spoiler, and I could be wrong on this. Maybe Chris wants to take a look. I think they've got a pop of her in costume.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. I think. I remember somebody saying. So I could be totally wrong. So somebody check, because I'm on my little appy.
It's weird that Marvel would release that. Like, it's weird that Disney would release that prematurely, considering they kept Grogu under wraps. They had all the merch ready, but they waited until that was revealed. So it's weird that they would pull that with Marvel.
They didn't with her, actually. IMDb, though, listed her as Monica Rambeau in the second episode before we even knew who she was.
Mm.
So I don't
the only pop that I see It's just her in a like a
so.
regular spacesuit type thing.
So what if Wanda's hex powers are inadvertently, if not creating mutants, but still accidentally creating supers that could be good or bad and become a problem later?
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, if she was thrown through a power field created by Wanda, that could have done it.
And how about when Vision starts to exert himself against her? Where
that was cool.
He says, "You can't control me," and she goes, "Can't I?"
Binzer and I were talking last week, and he had a really good point about like his powers and him growing stronger and stuff. I don't remember what you were saying about that, but you had a really good point. I don't think it was during the podcast. You and
Did
I
I?
just talked. You did.
Well, he is growing powerful. I mean, he released someone from her influence.
It was the Mind Stone. You were talking about
they brought this up in before Vision died, is that he was wondering what he would be without the Mind Stone, because obviously that's gone. Because he's part Jarvis, he's part Ultron, he's part Tony, he's part this. Like, how much of himself would he still be without the Mind Stone? And I think we are going to find that out.
Well, it certainly seems like parts of the Mind Stone are still in him too, because, like I said, he released someone from mind control temporarily, and then put them back again. So,
and he's still got his phasing powers too, right?
Exactly. So that part of the Mind Stone is still in there. It may not be there physically, but the residual from the Mind Stone is still in him.
Yeah, I think there's something to that.
It's like the residual effect of like Wanda having her powers and Captain Marvel having her powers from the stone. Like, they don't need the stone anymore to have their powers. It's infused
good point.
Them. So even though he had the Mind Stone, he had like a controlled, concentrated source of the mind power, which made him mind-blowingly strong. So maybe now when he gets fully revamped, he might not be to the same level of power because he doesn't have that concentrated, but I mean, he's still going to give everybody a run for their money because Captain Marvel and Wanda are no joke.
He's a vibranium synthezoid. That right there is virtually indestructible. I knew it took Thanos to break him, right?
My other question is that if Vision doesn't remember any of his past or whatever, how does he know how to use all of his powers? So, like, because we've steadily seen his power usage creep up. Like, we see him doing the computations really quickly. And then in the third episode, he runs to the doctor because Wanda's having a baby.
It's the show premise. That's why.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, two things. Do you think about writing your name? Or is it just ingrained in you? That's ingrained in him. It's like a subconscious thing. And also, Wanda has those memories. If she's rewriting things, she would rewrite those things into him.
That's fair.
So, yeah, it's probably selective memory loss, honestly.
Yeah.
Rewriting all the bad things that happen so that it doesn't traumatize him and makes him more docile to the surroundings.
I don't think it's traumatizing him. I just think it's making him not remember anything that Wanda doesn't want him to think about.
Well, his hard drive got wiped, but his OS is still there, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna go psychology nerd here for a minute. There's episodic versus procedural memory. Procedural memory, so when you get amnesia, you lose your episodic memory. You lose who you are, all those sort of things. But procedural memory, you remember how to write your signature. You remember how to do things that are complete muscle memory. You remember how to walk, talk, all English, your language, all that sort of thing. Like, you still remember how to do all of those things. It's just your episodes, your stories, your personal memories that make you are gone. So you're basically, his episodic memory is gone, but his procedural memory is still there, which is why he still has those innate abilities to do those things.
But not all is episodic. Not all is episodic memory. I mean, he knows who he is. He knows his name. He knows. He remembers Wanda and all that. So, I think it's Wanda. More. Yeah, but I think that's I think Wanda's is fucking with his memory and just removing certain parts. So
I think it's kind of the opposite in a way, because I was saying that each episode he's getting stronger, right? And I think what's happening is he's rebuilding his own memories. So she's not suppressing them. There just weren't any there to begin with. And now he's starting to get his memories.
Yeah.
So I think probably next episode we'll see more flashbacks from him and more defiance of her power. So, because I really think it's going to be Vision, whatever happens here, it's going to be Vision saving Wanda.
Do we think Vision's going to survive past this series? Will Visions be in the MCU, or is he going to die saving her again?
I would go look up how many movies Paul Bettany has signed a contract.
That reminds me that I read last week that this is a complete aside, a tangent, but War Machine's going to appear, and I think Falcon versus Winter Soldier. He's going to be in some or that or Loki. He's going to be in something before he gets anywhere near the Armor War show, which I'm fucking crazy excited for. Oh, yeah, the Vision being resurrected the way he has. You know what it reminded me of? And Juice, you might remember this back in the 80s. They killed Optimus Prime in the movie. Then the second generation of Transformers kind of came in, Rodimus and all them. But they eventually brought Optimus back, and it was, heroic in himself. But before that, they did an episode where they brought him back, but he was being controlled like a puppet, and he was being used for bad purposes. And then partway through, he became self-aware again, and I was fucking traumatized all over again. One, that they killed my hero. Two, that they brought him back and used him horribly, and he woke up and he was all disfigured, and he was like, "What have I done?" And I was like, this might be kind of what's going on with Vision, but so hopefully he'll get a better ending.
I remember that.
It was horrible. Remember the Autobot funeral barge and it had dead Autobots? I was like, this is horrible. All my heroes.
Of course, then there's also like the Starscream ghost. That was
at least the Starscream ghost was kind of fun, and he was in control of himself. Like Optimus got puppeteered in a horrible zombie way. But I'm fine. There was no trauma or anything. I'm fine.
When you're talking about the transform, I just said this idea that like when Smurfs die, that they have this little Smurf barge, and like they don't even have to really be dead. They just got to be kind of dead, and they put them on the Smurf barge, and they've got all the dead Smurfs like lined up on posts.
And then this little Smurf fires off this little burning toothpick, which lights the barge on fire.
Gargamel's eating them.
Like just the idea that you're like sitting at the park with your kids, and you tell the kids to go play by the river, and their kids see the Smurf funeral barge come by.
I didn't think anything would get weirder than the Optimus thing, but here we are.
And you have to say, no, they're going to a better place.
Oh, Meredith, stop him, please. Okay, we're cutting off the Smurf funeral barge discussion before it goes any further. We're about to end for the night, but before we do, for all you true crime podcast lovers out there, Clan Flynn members Artemis and Milnari are starting a new podcast called The Grim Dark Diaries, which will be out every Thursday, and they are going to talk about all kinds of cool and twisted true crime stuff, and their first 2 episodes are dropping this week, so keep an eye out for that. It's going to be awesome. All right, everyone, see you next week.